going into my basketball. Every time I rock, man, this is how we rap and raw. Peace to my man, now we got the camera out. Every time I spit it, cross over the...
Hello, everybody. This is Josh, also known as Yashu, and you're tuning into episode 29 of the TLOY Talks podcast. We're almost at 30 right now, but it should be set good to go once all these other episodes are done. In that sense, too, for people to tap in. Thank you for watching today, and let's tune in right now. So today we have a former guest that was back for the interviews back in 2021. I interviewed him a while back, and we have Krosst Out in the building. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right, man. Welcome back to TLOY. Well, welcome to TLOY Talks. For the very first time, since this is your actual first time on the podcast. So
live and in the flesh.
Yeah, exactly. And just interacting too. Because the last time it was via Zoom. Now we actually get to meet, which is very interesting to hear and all that.
Yeah, and it's been happening a lot. I met I've been doing so many more online collabs, and then now the pandemic is over. So, I got to meet Imperative back in October, and him and I had a song together. We've done work and stuff, so that was super cool. So,
wow, definitely. So, let's get it started right here. So, you got this upcoming album that should be dropping sometime this year. I Had a Dream, I Didn't Have Eyes, and basically, you explained it kind of briefly on your press release and with everything else too. But what can fans expect for that project, and what's the creative process for that project?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more different, but I feel like all of my projects kind of pick up in a spot where I left off. And so this one, I had a dream that I didn't have eyes. True story, happened several times, and it was just kind of came at a point where I was feeling just depressed and lost and had no purpose really anymore. I didn't know what was going on. And so felt very angry. So this album is very angry, just a lot more fusion of rock going on, and but a lot more aggressive rap tracks. I wanted to kind of just get more into my bag of aggressive rap and just tap into that a little bit more and just push myself sonically. So that's what we're going for with this one. It's a bigger project too. It's 11 tracks as opposed to Phone Calls was 8. So yeah.
Wow, most definitely. Because I know you released Life at the Party, the 5-year album release. The 5-year release just last year.
Yeah.
Added maybe 3 tracks to it. You also dropped a lot of other singles too. One with Creo, one also with I think Free Cheers, and the Bottom Boy, and then Television with Imperative. And just getting back onto those previous singles, what were the creative processes for, and the inspirations for that?
It all depends. I can tell you that the creation for Bottle Boy is wildly different for the creation of Television. Television was something that Imperative I had worked on, and then I felt I wanted to touch on some political issues on that one. And then Three Cheers came at a point where I was just it was mid album writing, and it was I was just at such a low point, man. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Um and I was drinking way too much. It started consuming my life. So that was sort of the point of Three Cheers for the Bottle Boy. Never trust a man wants to die. Um so that creation process and that creation process are different. They're all just, it kind of almost depends on just the life experiences or how the beat hits you too. When Creo hit me up with that beat, it was oh man, I could definitely see myself doing some more chilled laid back stuff. So I just kind of you know went on that one differently too.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Because when you mentioned about with drinking and the effects that drinking had on you for a bit too, when you were speaking about that song too, I realized around that time too with the pandemic, a lot of people started to do other stuff more, blaze up, drink, all that type of stuff too. But have you felt since you came back and all that, with the drinking, it could be too intense at times too, when going to events and everything like that too, in that sense? Or do you feel it was like sort of like more so like a lifestyle thing that might have happened like way before like pre-pandemic?
Yeah, it was definitely a lifestyle thing, like
Ah,
pre-pandemic,
true.
and I had always kind of like, I touched on that. I mean, that was like what life of the party was.
Ah,
You know,
true.
it was a storyline of the darker sides
Yeah.
of drinking. Um, and it's always funny. Like people are just a contradiction in themselves. Like they'll talk about something that is like, you shouldn't do this as much. Like you shouldn't party. Like
Yeah.
that's bad. Don't do it. It's bad. um, but I was at the same time doing that, and then it's still recognizing that
Yeah.
that shit's like bad for you.
Yeah.
And then you know, yeah, man, like last year just really hit the ceiling where it just like, um, I managed to get control of it,
Yeah.
and some people can't, you know.
Yeah.
So, but what keeps me grounded is I was just changed up my
Yeah.
lifestyles, and I don't want that shit to hinder me anymore.
Yeah, nah, most definitely, man. Because I realized that too with like everyone. Like, I think when it came like to like the fall of like 2021, with events coming back and all this other type of stuff going on too, I think like at times like people didn't know like how to act at times, so people didn't know like how to react or kind of move around. So it's kind of like some people would kind of overdo like certain things too, or others would just kind of like break the rules in that sense too, to kind of like make certain situations happen and all that. Like I could say like even with Astro World 2 and all that, like a lot of people like were just like running over, like pushing all these other people over and all that, and making sure to get like a good like view and like overcrowd people, and then like some even like breaking into like the venue and all that too, and then like that caused like a lot of deaths. So I do feel like I see like a lot of the effects too for people who were like kind of housed in for so many years, like not even for so many years, but like for so many months, and then to come back and to kind of get like the gas back in motion, like it kind of has like this crazy effect that people tend to have like there's no sense of like self-control like in that sense too. So
Yeah, in that case, the only person that you're thinking about is yourself. And
yeah.
like, I mean, I do it all the time where I'm like, man, I don't give a fuck, and I'll just go ahead and do it, like regardless of consequences.
Yeah.
And then you got to deal with those consequences later.
No, I definitely know what you mean, man. And you have an upcoming single right now, This the New Shit. It's actually dropping later, like in May, like next month, like around like mid-May. And then, you also recently dropped like another single, like Anastasia with On Cue, like a well-known rapper like in New England and all that. So for this the new shit, what's the creative process like for that song, and what can fans like expect from it?
Yeah, this the new shit is like, um my some of my favorite albums have just an introduction track that is obnoxious and completely like disregarded what you thought of them in the first place. Like for example, like Under Oath, everyone expected them in the music industry to be like Fall Out Boy Part Two, and then they
Yeah.
came out and released Define the Great Line, and their opening track is just obnoxious and intense. And same thing with Kanye did that on Yeezus, and it's just like has the most brutal entry point. And so this is the introduction track to the
True.
album.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I wanted you to hear was it it's just like just a shit talking song.
Yeah.
And it brings the mood, like the anger that I'm feeling in
Yeah.
the album.
Yeah.
And then that coincides with like the next one that we're gonna drop. Like we did a music video in tandem, like two music videos that kind of tell a story. Um, so those two songs like go hand in hand, and those were the first ones that I wanted people to hear to be like, "Yo, what the fuck is going on?"
Nah, I definitely know what you mean, man. And like, even tapping in for like Anastasia with OnCue, because I think the last time I heard about that guy, he made like a double XL freshman pitch
Yeah.
for like 2017 and all that. And, just kind of came with the black hat, bald headed, like I think a lot of people compared him to like Eminem or like another artist, like in that sense too, in the comment section. But like, what was like the inspiration and creative process for that track? And how did you manage to work with that guy?
Yeah, so that was my boy Jordell that produced it. He's produced a bunch of my shit
Oh,
before. Um, and I was just writing, and again, it just kind of wrote itself in a way. I just kind of flowed through the track, but I wanted to hit it different. So we sat on it for like a year. But Anki has been a huge influence since like I opened up for him back in the day. Like he did a show here at Hard Luck,
Oh, true.
and so I opened up for him, and since then I've just kind of been more of a fan of him and just watched him grow. And I had this track, I'm like, man, he would just sound so good on this. And then so I hit him up.
Yeah.
They're like, can we hear the track? Yeah. Send the track. Like, all right, cool. Send it through. And it was like, boom, like
Yeah.
within a week we had that done. And then I just sat on it for a while because it was just such a great song. And to have validation from someone like him meant a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like an interesting co-sign from there and all that. And like, I was like listening to it today, and I like the vibe. It's kind of like more so like an actual like new school like track, but even with the whole like 2014 to 2016 like influence. Like I was thinking, more so like G Easy, like Skizzy Mars, Wood Lowry, like in that sense too. Like I kind of like felt that from that song too, just with the layered production, like the layered background vocals, like it's amazing to hear, so
yeah, that's funny. I mean, I guess it would fit in that same kind of boat. I didn't think
yeah.
about that, but yeah.
Yeah. True. And like I think I don't know, like around that wave, like I don't know if that was like more so like an influence that kind of came by, like the whole like G Easy, Skizzy Mars, with Lowry, Devon Baldwin type sound that you were like kind of like influenced by like a little bit too, or
I mean, there was a period of time where, like, during that, like, it was like 2016 when G-Eazy was really popping off. He had that second album. That was good. He's the only concert I've walked out of.
oh wow.
We went to go see him, like Logic, him, like YG, and we stayed for it. We thought like Logic was headlining, and then it was like G-Eazy, but it was just like I don't know. The show was just whack, so we were just like, nah, fuck this. So yeah, but he's definitely like he's had so. I guess
Yeah.
everything you listen to has some sort of an
Yeah.
impact on you.
Because like G-Eazy's like first two albums, like I could definitely say were like classics, like in that sense too. Like These Things Happen, and then also the one I think it had like a lot of other songs too, like his 2012 project, but I can't name it. But like I remember those two albums, like Tumblr Girls and all that. I Mean It,
Yeah.
a lot of that. Like this other song that sampled like Differences by Genuine and all that. Like I felt like that album was like very like amazing to listen to too, and I felt like it had like that whole like unique vibe in that sense too. But then I think when he kind of went like mainstream with the new sound, it's kind of like, hey, this is kind of like the next Mac Miller, like in that sense too, like Mac Miller, Eminem in that sense too, but not really in that sense.
Well, he was one of those dudes. When you talked about him, people had a hard time understanding like what he was about
Yeah.
because he like I think like there was something weird about his branding. Because for the first two albums, you kind of got it. You were like, oh yeah, cool. He's like that, greased back, like,
Yeah.
leather jacket, almost like 50s type character.
Yeah.
And then like somehow it kind of just shifted, and you're like, what's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like those two albums are great, and I think they did change kind of
Yeah.
the sphere in terms of like
Yeah.
white boy rap, at least.
Yeah. And then I think, later on, like I think he had some good albums, but then I think when it hits like 2017, 2019, it kind of became like more generic for that sound, for the clubs and,
Yeah.
Radio to play to. But I felt like, him back then, like he was like so hungry as well too. And like, like even like Jack Harlow too, like I remembered like I would read comments and like a lot of people would say that, his other projects like Loose and like Confetti were better projects than like when And the Kids Came Home or something like that, and also his first album. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I heard this. I forget who was talking about it. Maybe it was Talib. But they were talking about how like white rappers get forced into this thing of like, you know, eventually they kind of have to go the route of just being like an artist, like doing something different, because they have a hard time sustaining being a white rapper. And
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm just relaying this as like, this is like a potential, but like, kind of explains like
Yeah.
the route that they've done. Because G-Eazy put out like a weird album like 3 years ago or something, like
I
during the
think yeah, back in
pandemic.
2020. I think it's like more an experimental project, and then I didn't think like the reception kind of came as strong. Like I didn't
Nah.
really like listen to it yet, but then I think just a year later he released like these like his other album like these things like always happen or something like that, and then like it had like the whole like ESTG Black Bear songs and all that, and then I think that's when fans like started to gravitate it now. But yeah, I feel like he does play certain styles like here and there, and then like I felt like one thing that I could definitely say is that he definitely pays homage to his roots. Like he's from the
Yeah.
Bay Area and all that. He puts on for Bay Area artists and all that. You know, he had E40, he had like Cool John, Pilo, all those other people. Like if you're tapping with like the whole like Bay Area scene,
Yeah.
like he's putting support for all those people on and like having them on his projects, having them like on his tours and all that. And like it's good for this. So I can definitely say that he's not like a culture vulture or someone that's using his like privilege to sustain off of black culture. Like he's actually putting his own people like on in that sense too. So
Yeah, and it like a lot of the time now, especially because rap is so mainstream, and at the time, like when he was kind of blowing up, there was just at that concert there was a lot of like white girls
yeah,
there, and
yeah,
so when he has an album that has E40, then you're exposing those white girls
it's
or
E40.
other
Yeah,
white people from the
yeah,
suburbs to E40
yeah,
or like YG or whatever. Like,
yeah.
so that shit is important. So
Yeah, no, most definitely. Just getting back onto the topic right now.
yeah,
Basically, with live shows like coming back, like in like since like the fall of like 2021, you managed to perform at some shows lately. I think last year you and I think Melodica and like Creo had a show. I think at the Garrison, or was it like at another
yeah, it
venue?
was at the Monarch.
True.
Yeah, Monarch.
True. So, like, even in that sense, too, do you feel like that live music has started to get back to normal since the pandemic in that sense?
Yeah, but there is like there's a carefulness around it, um, and I still feel this way where um you can't just book dummy shows anymore.
Yeah,
Like the days of like asshole promoters is like
yeah,
becoming few and far between. Like that shit just doesn't run. Like venues don't want that either. Like if you're not able to put on a good show, they're not gonna wanna work with you. So many venues lost their asses during the pandemic, so why would
yeah,
they continue to work with some asshat that's, like, doesn't know how to put on a show?
yeah,
So, um, yeah, in that sense, I think it's been good, so and that's really strived us, like, we did a show at the Piston in February, and that shit was sold out. Really took the time to plan it out and get everyone involved and made sure everyone had a fun night, made sure all the
yeah,
artists got paid properly, like, and that's what music is supposed to be about. Like everyone has fun. We went there, we did our jobs, got on stage, filmed it, and like made sure all the artists were taken care of, and everyone that came out was like
yeah.
safe and had fun, and
Yeah,
so
no, most
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, because I know like even with certain venues too, like they do put it on for certain artists too, and for the promoters, like for small artists, for like small promoters, like and it's even evident for the small venues, not more so like the big venues, like let's say like a Garrison or like the Phoenix Concert Theater, because like a lot of them they'll have like these shows, like, but is there like an incentive to kind of get the room going to kind of put on for some people, and like others don't really want hip hop like at certain shows too, like on how strict with the insurance and everything too. So even with certain artists that don't even merge onto that sound, like it's even like hard to even book those venues too. So I do feel like they are kind of playing politics and only putting like the big promoters like on the side too, like Rap Season, Embrace, Live Nation, MRG Collective, and with the smaller promoters and the smaller people like that want to like have those shows, it's like a process. It's like kind of like a whole like call ticket. You're gonna have to take this call ticket number and then wait like maybe like 2 to 3 years or maybe like 8 to 9 months to even like book like a date for the venue and all that in that sense.
yeah. For smaller venues, a lot of the time they'll give you kind of like the Piston gave us a day on like a Thursday because they're like, Fridays, Saturdays, those are our biggest days. Like, don't take that away from us type of deal. And we don't know you. But once you start establishing yourself as someone that can put on shows and good shows, then the venue is gonna want to work with you, right? So, you're having a little bit yeah, like you just gotta build your cred
Yeah,
a little bit
most
more.
definitely. And what have you missed about like live music? And like when it comes to like the whole like live music aspect since the epidemic, like what did you miss about it?
Oh, it's so much more fun to get out there and like you could write a million songs and then have like a million people on TikTok that fuck with you. But if you can't get on stage, then that's where you're really lacking. Because that's the personal thing. Like, there's so much more interpersonality going on
Yeah.
here as opposed to when, you and I were just on Zoom. Like
Yeah.
it's so
I think it's just like also like reading the body language, like knowing like the interest, like knowing how to like communicate eye contact as well too. Because like when you're looking, like as you said, like when you're looking at a computer or like at a phone, it's like, am I knowing the person's like body language like easily and all that? Do I know if they feel like comfortable like in that sense too? Because like even in that sense for live shows too, because when you go to a live show and perform, like you definitely know that the artists or like the people like in the crowd might feel comfortable, like they're enjoying the night and all that. If you notice something that's wrong, I think nowadays too, like more artists are stepping in to make sure that everyone's okay, that like no one's getting like violated or hurt like in that sense too. So no, I definitely like understand.
yeah, no, true. Like I said, like when I'm there at the show, like everyone's there to have a good time, make sure of that. But then on stage, like I like to go crazy.
Yeah.
I've blown blood vessels on performing and stuff, and like my set gets really intense. But I always make sure that like everyone's cool with like all the stuff that I do, and like no one ultimately like got hurt or anything like that. But yeah, and I mean, it's so much. It's just so much more of a like a next level. Like that helps make you a better artist. Like you can really find out who you are, especially if like the crowd does not fuck with you. Like you're at like I've done like metal shows, rock shows, just all types of shows. And it's like if the crowd is not there for you and you're opening up and they're not fucking with you, you gotta make them fuck with you. Like,
Yeah.
yo, from the back of the room, come to the front. Like I'm not gonna like spit on you or
Yeah.
anything. Like you know,
Yeah.
it helps, like, just boost yourself up, like, you
No.
find out who you are.
Most definitely. I just want to add this question to add this question in like in that sense too. So who was like the biggest artists that you've actually opened up for, and who were like some of like the best artists or like the worst artists that you like opened up for like in like all aspects?
I mean, honestly, on cue, I started putting on my own shows, after a couple of, like, opening ups because there's always, like, the big ask, especially around that time too. I opened up for Mac Lethal,
Oh,
uh,
true.
back in the day, and that shit was even Mac Lethal was not happy with that show. And just the promoter did a really bad job of promoting it. So, um, I didn't even like I didn't even meet him or anything. So, but yeah, On Cue was a great show um, to open up for, and then yeah, I've just kind of done mainly my own thing.
Oh, true.
Just spent more time. I try to book my own shows and that sort of thing. But I would love to continue booking shows and then have bigger artists on the bill. I mean, I've got to work with so many dope local artists though. That's the
Yeah.
thing. So, having those connections and working with artists in another province, having them on your bill and you just get to,
Yeah.
say that you work with these people and the network connects a little bit more.
No, most definitely.
Yeah.
And like even in terms of your growth too, because you've been like doing this for so long, but do you feel like you've grown like as an artist from like the start of your career like until now?
100%. You know, I mean, I think I started a little bit later than others, but I was just so um, not sheltered, but insecure about my rapping that I just didn't want to put things out for a long time. So I just spent years like focusing, writing my raps, and then telling people that I rap, but then not never being able to tell people I'm a rapper until like once I dropped Life of the Party, I kind of started feeling like, oh, this is actually something like I'm doing. So, but yeah, it real growth from from the start of it to now, man.
True, no, most definitely. And even with the current mainstream scene right now, I feel like there is a lot of stuff that's actually going on right now. I mean, with the rise of like TikTok, even making it bigger, like for like a lot of artists too. I mean, Nicki Minaj's rise like as an artist, like coming back, especially with these new acts, like with Ice Spice and Pink Panthers and like Lotto and all those other people too. And then with like certain rock bands coming back, like Maneskin and like I think Glass Animals too, and then I think Machine Gun Kelly going to like punk and rock at that one bit too. But what are your thoughts like on the current sound right now, like on the current mainstream music scene? Do you feel that there is like a lot of like uniqueness today, or do you feel like it's more like recyclable, like when it comes to like the different sounds and like songs?
Yeah, I think it is very recyclable. Um, and very like stagnant, and it's kind of been stagnant, and there's like a rinse and repeat method of doing stuff. And I mean, I saw a thing talking about how, the reason why like rap is not like it's now under it's not the top selling genre anymore because like
Yeah,
maybe like people feel that there's not really like any originality or like ingenuity going on with
yeah,
stuff. And I mean, I definitely feel that artists talk about how they just want to collaborate, just have this person on their track, and then that person will do a feature, but it has nothing to do with the song. And so then other people are changing their songs based on like they're just featuring for featuring. They're not featuring for like
like the genuinity and like even being open to like working with this person and like learning from them, like in that sense too. It's more so like, hey, I have a placement that I've worked with like Cardi B or like Little Baby or like Drake or like Future, like just like in that sense too.
yeah, like I'm a big proponent of having people on tracks that can bring something to the track,
Yeah,
right? Like that's sort of my I had a dream I didn't have eyes is like most of my other projects from before only have like a couple features. But this one has a slew of features, and they're all kind of people that I feel could bring something to that sound, to add something to
yeah,
make a sonic experience.
yeah,
And I feel like people really are lacking a sonic experience now. Like for me, I have a hard time finding new music.
yeah,
And it's not to say that there's not good new music out there. I'm just having a harder time finding it.
yeah,
Slow Tie is definitely one of my favorites right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean too. And I think with some people, like it's more so developing like, other artists that they can get them to like number one, like in that sense too. So like the incentive of like pushing like a new artist nowadays, it's kind of like zero to none unless like they have that hit record. So it's more so, all right, if we have like an artist right now that we could already develop to get them to that number one spot, we could do that. So, and I think one example would be like Steve Lacy for a bit too, because like Steve Lacy, he's been making music since like 2014, 2015 when he was like still like in high school and all that, him being like in the internet and all that, and then he didn't really get his like rise to fame like until like last year with Bad Habits and all that. And it is like very like understandable too, because I think a lot of people do kind of prefer that. And like his biggest record was like back in like 2018, 2019 and all that. But when it came to Bad Habits, it's like, hey, it's something that kids can listen to, that we can reach, we could reintroduce like a certain artist to like the audience in that sense too, to kind of get that memory and then get those like new listeners while having like those old listeners come back to enjoy it. Like same with SZA too, because like even with SZA, like her last album was like me like back in like 2017, and it was like one of the biggest like albums or like records like up to date, like people were listening to it. But then like between 2018 to like 2021, she wasn't like really releasing anything of importance. She was kind of like more so for social media. And like that time period, it kind of changed because of like TikTok, because the pandemic. And then when it came to 2022, hey, I'm ready to drop an album and all that. Like I'll have these songs, and when I get the green light, I drop that album and then reintroduce my old fans to my old music to get them to enjoy while introducing like this new sound to like new fans and all that. So I definitely see like where music is going right now. So it's more so like reintroducing certain artists rather than bringing like new artists like on in that sense.
Yeah, no, that is the cool part. You know, when Post Malone does a song with Ozzy Osbourne, and then everyone gets to go and look up who Ozzy Osbourne is, and they're like, "Oh my god, like Black Sabbath, what?" And then it opens up a whole new lane, right? I like I'm a big fan of that. Or like shows like Stranger Things when they
Yeah.
introduce Metallica.
Yeah.
There's no gatekeeping. Like Metallica
Yeah.
is a great band. Why would you want to keep that secret?
Yeah.
Like,
And like a new artist could be like hit or miss nowadays too, unless like they actually have that genuine sound that people can like definitely like atone to. But I feel like nowadays too, with like the record labels and everything and everyone else too, because with a lot of the like bigger and like mainstream artists like already like releasing music and taking breaks, like they need someone to pump more money into it. And like, hey, we have these artists like on our labels that we could definitely like pump into now to get like the audience introduced to them. And I feel like nowadays too, it is like more forced because like imagine like you're just putting like this new artist on with not a strong caliber or like a level of respect that they can attain an audience, but we have to force it out because we need to kind of get the money to kind of make more records, more dollars, more awards and all that. And then they're not really focusing on the people that are actually like helping like those artists out, like that are actually helping like the label out, which is like the bigger artists too. So I do feel like there is like a lot of like open like realms and wounds that kind of have like those effects like on the current mainstream sound and all that. So yeah.
yeah, and the record label now more than ever is cashing in on the TikTok virality, right? Like, um, you could have an artist that's like just popping off, but this might be their first song, and then they're like, "All right, cool, do that again," and they're just milking them, and then they'll just discard them later.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times it's like artists are not always meant to be discovered right away. Like, just there's stuff in the ether that I don't want people to listen to because it's dog shit. And like I'm happy that like no one found
Yeah.
that, right? So
No.
it's like I had a chance to grow as an artist, and now I'm proud of the stuff that I'm putting out, and that's the stuff that I want people to listen to,
Yeah.
right? Some artists don't get that chance.
Yeah. No, most definitely, man. And like just even with this question too, like would you say like finding a way to make your song go viral on TikTok is a fair, creative, effective like marketing strategy proposal or for artists, or do you feel like it would diminish like one's artistry like in that sense?
For me, it diminishes it because when I hear that same TikTok song on the radio, like, man, turn that fucking shit off, man. Like that's a fucking TikTok song. Like
Yeah.
that's a trending TikTok sound that I can use to boost my videos for the algorithm. That's all that is. I don't really like picture it as like a real song,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Like, and there's a lot of the time there's gimmicks behind that
Yeah.
shit. Like, and making your song go viral, like, what does that mean? Are you writing to make your song go viral? Like,
I feel like in that sense too, it's just kind of like with attention spans and everything else too. Like a lot of songs nowadays are like less than like 2 minutes nowadays too. It's like a 1 minute or like 50-second song and all that. Like with the same loop, same like chorus, same like sound, same melody, same pitch. And it works for people that want to dance or have fun. And then they'll only use like that whole like 15-second clip to kind of get people to dance or do their thing and all that. Like, there's like even with Sirius XM, like there's like TikTok radio and like they'll play like the certain songs that are like famous on TikTok, but most people would only tune into like that 15 seconds like more than like anything too. And like with some artists like they're even like tired as well too, because like imagine like, with Charlie XCX or like someone like Ed Sheeran, they have to go on TikTok to make content rather than to create the craft. And like even they're like even they're like tired of it as well too. So
yeah, creating content is stupid. There used to be a time where you could just sit back and just create and be an artist, and
yeah.
that happens so much now where people are forced to spend so much time creating content
Yeah.
that their songwriting is now lacking, or they don't
Yeah.
know how to like continue to push themselves because they're just spending all of their time creating content. That's why like my content on TikTok is I don't give a shit if I have an idea to talk to my audience. I'll talk to my audience, and the people that follow me, they follow me and they feel the same way that I feel, or they'll communicate with me and they like what I put out. At least that's what I
Yeah.
think. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Like in that sense too, like you kind of make more endorsements and money, like even with that sound too, but it really doesn't do anything and all that because like if that's not like your main purpose, like like an A&R's job is to kind of make that supposed like content to get people to tap in with the artist. It's not like really the artist's job to kind of make the content. It's more so I make the song. If it goes good, it goes good. Like if it doesn't go well, I'm gonna make another song and all that. So
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend Melodica, she just dropped a song.
uh,
I'm on it, but um, we've just spent so much time building our fan base that like we let the fan base decide, and
yeah,
everyone showed up for it. They were like, "We love this song. This is the best," and they just kept putting it on rotation.
yeah,
So something like that is much more organic and just much more real. The game now is just pay to play. So if you want, you could just hop on and pay $5,000 to a company that's gonna put your song on a sports influencer or something like that, and then
yeah.
push it out that way. But the way we've been doing it is just so much more organic, and it means so much more when the fans actually show up.
Nah, most definitely, man. And it leads to another question about like AI and advanced technology. I don't know if you've listened to that whole like Drake and Weekend song on Twitter. Heart on my sleeve, like like on Selena and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was funny. I only heard like the snippets that were going
True.
around, but I did hear about the whole like
Yeah.
they're taking it down, and
Yeah.
it's like it's causing this whole kerfuffle now. People do
Yeah.
not know what to do.
Yeah, I think UMG, I think they made like a pact, or I think like more so like like a like a set standard, like that certain people should not, or like AI companies should not take certain like artists like vocals and like make them into like recreated sounds without like permission and all that too. And like it's been seen with like Munch, it's been seen with Bryson Tiller's like Don't song, like all these other songs too. And in your opinion, how do you feel about AI and like the use of advanced technology to like making its way to playing a part like in the on the music industry based on like recreating like actual vocals to make certain songs and the use of like chat-gpt for songwriting purposes? Do you feel like it might take over for the use of artists in that sense too, or do you feel like a human has to be there to kind of create the songs in that sense?
I mean, a human doesn't have to be there at this point
Yeah.
now. Like we're enjoying songs that we've got that are AI. I don't think it's gonna ever fully take over. What this is causing now is just a level of like people want authenticity because everything's just so like fucked in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, Using ChatGPT to write your songs is akin to using a ghostwriter.
Oh, true.
And if you're open about it, I don't think it should be a problem.
Yeah.
But like if you're a rapper and you're using ChatGPT and be like, I wrote these bars, you're like, you fucking didn't. You fucking liar. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
Nah.
you know? So that's the same. That's how I equate it, right?
Yeah. But I feel like in some cases too, like it might be like stealing like someone's work in that sense too. Like, let's say like, someone uses your vocals and, they recreate to like, use somebody by like Kings of Leon or Smells Like Teen Spirit by like Nirvana. So it's like, Krosst Out did like a cover song to Nirvana or to like Kings of Leon, even though it's just only your vocals, but more so like sped up. Like, how would you feel like if a situation like that would happen to you and like you had like no authorization to even like make those songs in that sense?
Yeah, that's weird. Personally, I mean, for me, I mean, like, I'm putting my voice out there. People have heard my
Yeah.
voice. So I guess it's kind of out in the ether for people to manipulate and do whatever they want. Then the Otis is on the other people to actually like use their brains and
Yeah.
look up if like that's real. I mean, that would be cool to be. Krosst Out did a Smells Like Teen
Yeah.
Spirit cover. Like, if you could kind of use that to gauge reaction too. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, cool. Do people actually want me to do a Smells Like Teen Spirit cover? I will.
Yeah.
Um, and then so I mean, it's a tool. Everything's a
Yeah.
tool, but you know,
Yeah, but I feel like even with some artists too, like just to add in, like they don't want to feel like they're like recreating the songs or like doing everything like that because now like that onus is on them to say like, hey, I authorized this, hey, I didn't authorize that. So I feel like it's more so like the issues within consent and issues within understanding. Do I approve of it? Do I not like approve of it? Like in that sense too. So it is like just like common logic, like as you said too. So
Yeah, people, if they hate you, they might get you to say some inflammatory shit regarding like some things, and then that could land you in some hot water. But
yeah,
yeah, again, like it's on you to be like, first of all, I didn't say that, and if you believe that I did, then I can't help you.
yeah, no, most definitely, man. Just getting more onto like the non-musical related topics. Like I think like these might be like very like interesting to talk about. In previous tweets, you mentioned that people made like homophobic and like transphobic slurs at you as a teenager due to your like clothing style back then because you were into the whole like punk, emo goth like type style like back in high school. And nowadays too, it's more like relaxed nowadays for people to be open to wearing like certain clothes. So like even in that situation too, do you feel that the idea of acceptance and conformity is more so a double standard depending on the times at that time too? Like for something that was like not accepted like back then, now it's accepted now, and like the people who were doing it back then, they're not really getting that same respect now as they were. Like, well, they're not getting that same respect back then as they were like now in that sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because being emo is trendy now, but that shit was not trendy back in the day, right? Like you got made fun of, and people made fun of you for listening to that type of music. And yeah, like I went through a phase where I wore women's pants. They're blue, they're pink, they were red. I wore like other like just tight skinny jeans, tight like very much the scene. I had shutter shades, but also like the context matters too because I grew up in Campbellford. Like
Yeah,
I love my hometown, shout out Campbellford, but uh in a town of 3,000 people, there's not a whole lot of diversity that goes
yeah,
on, and like your exposure is very minimal. So when someone like that is dressing like that, they're like, yeah, it was called 90s F words all the time,
yeah,
and all other kinds of stuff. So um I take that shit seriously. Um but yeah, being today, I think there is more of a dress however you want kind of
yeah,
mentality. But there is still always that people will be like, yo, what the fuck are you wearing?
yeah,
And there's always going to be those people, I think, that are like, what the fuck are you wearing? And with that said, it's like, if you are wearing something outrageous, you have to be able to take the heat for wearing something
yeah,
outrageous. Like, you can't just be like, why are people bullying me for wearing something
yeah,
outrageous? Like, well, hey man, like you're not exactly dressing like, you know, how people make like are comfortable with, which is fine. You're allowed to
yeah.
do that, but take what comes with it.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Because like I think one example too, Dennis Rodman, like back in the '90s to like early 2000s, his hair was like green, blonde. He was dressing like he was wearing like dresses and like Sports Illustrated and like ESPN magazines and all that. And like he was hanging out with like Madonna and like all those other people back then, like Carmen Electra too. And like, people really didn't see him as like a high value man or like an alpha male at that time too, even with his caliber like on the net and all that. But I feel like at that time a lot of people were like kind of like misunderstood on like the way they were dressing like that and like the idea that they want to put out because like I felt like with Dennis, he didn't want to be someone that people like outlooked him like as just like a typical like an NBA player. He's like someone that's like full of life, full of like energy too in that sense. And I see it with a lot of people who want to not conform to like the mainstream lifestyle. It's like, you want to have like originality with your sound and with your uniqueness. So like even with clothing and even with like swagger, like it definitely like kind of works out from there. And it's either people like it or people don't like it, like, but still, you're still gonna be the one wearing the same clothes, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Nah, it doesn't. And it's more important that you judge people based on their character, right? Like,
Yeah,
the people that wear some of the more outrageous stuff, like you know, punks and metalheads
Yeah.
always, you know, their battle jackets or
Yeah.
their mohawks. You know, punks and
Yeah.
metalheads are some of the most coolest people in the fucking world.
Yeah.
It's the people that are wearing the suit and tie that are gonna backstab you most
And
of the time, in
you
my
know,
experience.
and like living like a double standard too, you know, like the Bay Street guy, you know, being like anti-drug, you know, being
Yeah.
monogamous, but monogamous in that sense too. Like he's like doing like lines of coke at night or lines of coke like every other day, and then you know he has like you know a sugar like a baby like on the side too. So you can't really like judge the other person. It's like calling like the pot like let me rephrase this. It's the pot calling the kettle like black in that sense too.
Yeah.
So
No, it definitely is, and no one is above the law. Everyone has some blood on their hands. Like, if you think that you can just throw a stone at someone and expect like that you are like relieved of all of your sins, you're fucking wrong.
yeah,
And I hope people come back at you 10 times harder. And so that's I don't judge anything, and if you want to live your life in whatever way, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, don't care. Like
uh,
that's how I feel.
no, most definitely. And you know, with these other topics as well too, you know, Bill C11, you know, with the whole like idea of like freedom of media and like cancel culture. Like how do you feel about those like specific topics nowadays too with cancel culture and like the Bill C11 like within like the Canadian federal government system?
Um, this shit makes me angry. Um, and it's hard to like talk about it to other people because a lot of these issues now that are going on are such hot button issues that there are some people that you think are friends that you just that will discard you instead of actually talking about them. But for me as an artist, when it comes down to like anything regarding like a censorship laws, hate speech laws are relatively ambiguous here. Like what does it mean? Um Anything that's like as an artist, I believe that you should be anti-censorship in whatever form because it is your job to push the envelope slightly and get people to think a different way than what would be your conventional way of thinking
Yeah.
or like what it's your job to expose people to a different way of thought and hopefully enlighten people. You know, that's what I try to do in my music. I mean, I just ultimately I spread my ideas and my thoughts, my philosophies, and my life experiences in my music. And if people can relate to that, then I'm so happy. But I would I would tell anyone to go fuck themselves if they told me I can't talk about that in my music. Like,
Yeah.
if I can't talk about that, then explain to me why I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, um, I think we should talk about that.
I feel like in that standard too, it's you know more so like showing respect. I feel like with what they're doing with the government, it's more so like, hey, you have to show these certain groups respect. Like if you wish to like respect them, like in that sense too. So maybe like a certain group that maybe some people might not like align to or accept, but I feel like with some people they'll play it neutral, like show the respect one way or another. But I don't align my views with other people, so I can understand like why Bill C11 would be within that sense too. But like in any other case too, like as you said, like freedom of expression. You know, everyone has the right to free speech, to right to show someone like on what they view, even if the view might not be as acceptable for like the mainstream society and all that too. So
Yeah, you have the right to freedom of speech as long as you're dumb enough to not actually try it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but with the whole respect thing, like respect begets respect. Like if you respect me, I respect you. Like you and I have the most respect right now. You haven't done anything to me
yeah,
to like warrant
yeah,
that I disrespect you,
yeah,
nor I hope I haven't done anything to
yeah,
you to warrant to disrespect
yeah,
me. Like that's how that should be, right?
yeah,
And we're on a level playing field. Everyone should just have a level playing field.
yeah,
And then like when you do
yeah,
something that's disrespectful to humans, then you go
yeah,
down notches.
yeah. No.
That's how I view it.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Because I feel like, as you said, with some people too, like their respect value like kind of aligns with what you know their empathy standard is for certain groups and all that too. So, like, let's say, like, I could give an example too. You know, with the Muslim community and all that. Like some people will have like a neutral respect, for Muslims, like in that sense too, because the regular people that kind of live, breathe, drink, eat the same foods as we are, like maybe just within like different like religious like practices too, like they might not eat certain things that we might eat, but like they're the same people, just as like you and me and all that. But with others, it's like, you don't eat pork, or you pray like several times like a day and all that, or you have to do like a set of fasting like every other day, or if the people in like your country or in your area believes in like a whole like radical thing that we don't align with, like our level of respect goes down. So can't really see you as like human too. So in that sense too, like I feel like there is like a little bit of a problem like when people kind of view the respect. So it's kind of like teaching them and like understanding them like, hey, the certain levels of respect are kind of like the same thing. It's just, maybe if you don't like align with those views, you don't have to align them, but like not everyone should be forced to align with like your own viewpoints in that sense too. And that's the same for everybody too and all that.
Yeah, no, I definitely like. Um, I think if you're just a nice person, you're a nice person. Like that's what people should strive to be. Like regardless of their religion. Like I said, like I believe that if you're not doing anything to hurt or impede anybody in their life, then you should be able to do whatever you want. Um, that's like just the anarchist view of life. Like just do unto others as you would do unto yourself, man.
No, most definitely, man. And we just have like some of these questions to go with. I think we already dabbled on with social media, so I think that's already good from there. But I never really talked about like your favorite television shows, movies, and like podcasts and such. So, do you have any television shows, movies, books, or podcasts that are like your favorite that you would like recommend for the like audience in that sense?
Um, favorite TV. I don't watch too many TV shows. Movies, definitely like anything like 80s related.
Ah,
Like
true.
you throw on an 80s movie, I'm definitely down. Like Breakfast Club, let's
Like
do it.
Rocky or like ET, that type of stuff too.
Yeah, anything 80s.
True.
Um, old school Star Wars fan.
Ah, true.
I'll count the 1, 2, and 3 as well, but I won't count the 7, 8, 9.
True. True.
Um, those ones. Books. I've been reading a lot of Kafka lately, just because that's sort of the whole premise around my album is very Kafka-esque, very like dark, delves into a lot of nihilism type of stuff. So anything Kafka, I'm a sucker for now. I've just been my latest book is Cujo, going back and reading some classics.
Oh,
So
by Stephen King, got you.
yeah, by
Yeah.
Stephen King. Yeah, um, yeah, books, podcasts. Oh, there's a fucking dope podcast called The Fall of
Oh,
Civilizations.
true.
And it's like 3 hours, 4 hours, and it just goes and just talks to you about how like the Incas came into being, or the Khmer
Oh, true.
Empire came into being, and then how they like uh blew up, became a superpower of the world briefly, and then how they just died out. And
Oh,
it's
true.
super interesting to see how these people and these cultures like influenced the societies and like what they contributed and how we're still using that shit
Oh,
today.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
that's probably, if anyone has not heard of that, Fall of Civilizations.
no, most definitely.
Yeah, man.
And like, how do you deal with your mental health as like a person of your in your position with everything going on in your life? Have you ever felt like at times it could be like overwhelming?
A time like what?
Like, with mental health, like with everything going on, like in your life, whether it's music, your personal life, have you ever felt like at times it could be like overwhelming in that sense?
Yeah, it gets really overwhelming. I used to almost just um disassociate a lot when it came to those type of things, and just quit um if I didn't get it right the first time. Now I'll take a break, I'll come back to it later. Exercise has been really great for me over the past couple of years. I've just gotten more and more into going to the gym or going for a run, and I treat that almost the same way I treat my music career. I'm mentally aware or making notes of where I am at and like tracking it and like how I can improve the next time. What's another exercise that I can do? Or like, man, I wasn't able to lift this much weight before. Now I'm able to do it. You know, it's the same thing. Man, I wasn't able to like spit like that a year ago,
true,
and then
true,
now I
yeah.
can do that. Like that makes me so happy. If for no other reason, that makes me happy, and then that's sort of a mental health boost. But definitely, just getting outside is always good for your mental health, man.
Nah, most definitely. And you don't have like any regrets or anything like that?
Oh, I mean, I got a ton. I mean, as you approach like older, you kind of start thinking about all the shit that you could do differently. So I still picture myself wildly young, and people think of me much younger. So I'm still trying to do all the shit that I want to do. Um, Tours and music wise, I got a laundry list of artists
Yeah.
I want to work with.
Yeah.
And I don't want to slow down for anything. You know, it can be really hard out there, especially given like the economy, to keep going.
Yeah.
But just the constant, what's the next little thing I can work towards, and then like
Yeah.
it's just a steady ladder, and then eventually you're 10 years down. And you're like, oh shit, look at all the stuff I've done.
Yeah. Nah, most definitely. And do you have any like closing remarks you'd like to say?
Um, Yeah, fuck fake people, man. Yeah, seriously. Um, no, just stay and stay true to yourself. I think like if you're a true artist, you know who you are, or you should at least strive to be who you are. Strive to learn who you are as an artist, and then go with that. Don't let anyone tell you that you are something that you're not. That shit's just like not true. Um, Most of the time, people that try to crab bucket you down are just afraid of themselves and afraid of their lackluster talent. So
Nah.
fuck those people.
Nah, most definitely, man. Like, Krosst Out, thank you for coming by again, for the very
Yo.
first time on the podcast. Second time, like, on the platform, so it's good either way. And for people tuning in right now, thank you for watching this episode that will be dropping soon. It'll be dropping on all projects, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, much more. YouTube as well, too. Like, if you're watching it via YouTube, give a review, like, on Apple Podcasts, like, if you definitely can for this one. You know, it's an amazing podcast right now. We definitely have like more coming. The 30th will be coming soon. So like once you see that 30th, we're only going up from there, and this is Josh, also known as Yashu, with the legendary Krosst Out,
What up?
episode 29 of TLOY Talks, signing off.